You're welcome back. This is NewsFile, is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on NewsFile, as you know, we put Ghana first. I'm your host, Samson Ladi Anyanini. I'll introduce my guest to you in a short while. But let's begin by listening to a few of the things that happened in the course of the week in respect of the voter registration violence at Kasoa and the responses that greeted it. Hawa Koomson spoke. Colonel Festus Abuaji has something to say. Professor Kwesi also has something to say, among a few other people. Just take your time and listen to these persons.
Starting registration. Ufaha na for the mema any moto no mushia wa ha. Yami de so obi ama me ma kwemu nti na nya masem. Na last week Thursday na me call self to Christ. Me call ya no. Na me call to say. Na me bi wo ho mo no friend say mama. E me de say wa ba. Na ma me wona ma na me wa send ya me bo wa ma ni. Ti ma me ne me number ade tinye Friday me no ka tell me say. The amount for free dynasty at the back inside there. I want a school, and you see a science school. 85 days now, in around. Naja, Saturday, see a break here, now, Manco. Now, children, no homeowner, and your information says, you say what time again, and cophobia, that's in Sawam. Abba. Now, no, I am Mr. Sanko for people, my east, and answer one. Any other area, have your mobile register. Now, they are all kind of society. And why am I strong? I mean, they are 12 of my news order. 82 2 times am I MP now. 80, we see the information. I'm afraid I need to claim. Need to be international. Now, young Kofa will be MP baby, my marriage, so cool. Now about to like obi meto aba maka ko eti mi sorry call polling center ho eno na jono me ne manager kasai eni yes okay e be ko na ye ne papa na ko kasa nti ko du ye na me manager ko edu dida
eti honorable me ba o se be na eja ye bobo ne tewtew no abra wo ko no o de me maka ho ko e
oh na sa anye ye kwa me so me na me ne me ma na ye adwuma. Politics, they say, many a man want to mean yet, many of them.
Ah, Mamma, now no quiet, no mucra two, any duty.
Maybe I may be anywhere who pray to a dimechi.
On one on no be uncra weapon bia.
Or be unfair weapon bia.
It won't a casa and honorable with him. I
am a man one show.
One casa, war MP. No ucra to a toban and a kitao.
But what mean to mean today?
Wouldn't him to no.
Oh,
there be Mabanos, one person who a two crown Nicky Town, Wadaroma.
Make with two cross.
Honorable, I said, oh, as an honorable member of parliament, who think as Okra to him to crow now, and I
need to be protected. Me
are protected, but also who to because once I'm back, will be young by all means. And I may say, a two o ekitao ebi a license ebi a license ya license ya
me protect wa me license
aha ite e na etu our license de onim tu okro ntina me bisa say etu ben ya
ana me ka to say me mbo mi tu oni din jobe me ta to say my license ni tu
na je say wo ko eye center ho no aboa wo ho dada sa na mpese mi hu
ma aboa me hu okwan na so me a member of parliament ofa eti me na na say me kuta ma put ma dia me de because we ni mo bi obekia and I'm your banty.
Let's go back to the first instance when that woman, gave her that confidential information. What should she have done? She should have informed the police that it had come to her knowledge that this activity was going on. She should have informed the EC that this activity, according to the information that she had, was going on. You see, the fact that she did not involve the EC, which has primary responsibility for the integrity of the process, did not inform or involve the police, which which has the statutory mandate for law enforcement or public law and order, suggests that she had become the constituency chief law enforcement officer and was going to deal with the situation the way that she thought fit. In any case, who burned those bikes? Was it the hoodlums who burned the bike, or was it her men who burned the bike?
Right.
Or the bike? She must not try to extricate herself from the circumstances in which she has found herself. The honorable thing to do, and all of us might, or some of us might have been in that situation, the honorable thing you do is to take responsibility, accept responsibility, and apologize.
Well, I think it's very disturbing. It's unacceptable. It's premeditated. And in her own words, when she heard instances of supposed violence, she stated clearly, Onyema Sema, that is not my business. So, to get reports from individuals, to leave her house and arm herself, supposedly with a registered weapon, probably she's been taught how to fire in a crowded area, and to behave in that manner is putting life at risk. The dismissiveness about the gun type, and then her statement about the licensing raises a lot of concerns. And I think both Mr. Nimako and my colleague, Mr. Friankra, have made their positions clear. But you see, politics is about serving the people of this country and creating an enabling environment in which development, stability, and peace allows us to perform. So it's up to the Inspector General of Police to handle this case. But it goes beyond the police service. This is our political culture. And it is my hope that His Excellency the President will ask Mrs. Hawa Koomson to step aside by tomorrow afternoon, or probably dismiss her, because her behavior.
We condemn in no uncertain terms such thuggery, sponsored and led by a high-ranking government official and lawmaker who is supposed to uphold the law at all times. Hawa Koomson has, by this singular criminal act and the many others committed before, and her gang, together with her gang, and all that they've meted out to NDC supporters and innocent Ghanaians in the last couple of weeks, demonstrated that she is a gangster who does not deserve to occupy any public position of trust. And we join the many voices of conscience in our society to demand her immediate dismissal from office and her prosecution for these heinous crimes. In any civilized society, this gangster minister would have been arrested and made to stand prosecution by now.
If you listen exactly, I believe you had reporters on the scene. And based on the report from your own reporters and some of our membership and independent bystanders of what took place at that place. There was a surge of people, some on motorbikes, and rushing at the MP who was going around to inspect what was going on, encourage people say you shouldn't have been there, and so forth. Encourage members of the party and the public, and even NDC people to patronize the registration exercise. And then before she was there, there were people surging around and on motorbike threatening. She felt threatened. It was a lady. The story that she's saying, which I have no reason to believe otherwise. And I felt very threatened. He was defending herself. And he didn't shoot at anybody. He fired a warning shot to keep people, to ward off the people who were coming too close. Some, I'm told, one of them used a motorbike to hit a car that was in it. That's what she says. That's what Some people are saying, and check from your own reporters what took place. I think it's over-exaggerated. And people are
It's exaggerated?
It's over-exaggerated.
Over-exaggerated.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. So you heard Hawa Koomson herself, the MP and minister, making the confessions and making the admissions about the fact that she actually opened the fire, gave warning shots by herself in self-defense. You heard Colonel Retired Festus Abuaje. You heard Professor Kwesi Ening, Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. You heard Reverend Paul Boafo, Chairman of the Christian Council of Ghana, Dr. Nyaho Tamaklo, Evans Nemako in charge of electoral, okay, we didn't have him speak yet, Elvis Efrie Ankra of the NDC, Freddie Blay, who is chairman of the NPP. Let me introduce my guest to you, and then we begin our discussion for the first segment of the show. Right here in the studio, our regular panelist, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, Abdul Malik Kweku Baako. Kweku, thank you for making time to join us.
Thank you, my brother.
Also here is Professor Ransford Jampo of the University of Ghana. Thank you very much for making the time, Prof.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right. And we will have another other guest joining us by Zoom. Professor Ransford Jampo is at the Department of Political Science of the University of Ghana. Professor Kwesi Ening, who is Director of the Faculty of Academic Affairs and Research of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, joining us via Zoom. Dr. Theo Echampong is economist, political risk analyst, and senior fellow, Imani Africa. Dr. Echampong, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, my pleasure.
Great. Do we have Professor Ening on the line yet? Okay. So I suppose we don't have Professor Ening yet. So can we start? And let me begin with Kweku Baako. What do you make of what is going on, and what should we do?
Let me deal with the specific case here. There's a history to what we are seeing. And last week, if you recollect, I recollected some instances.
Right.
And which involved gunshots and across the political divide. There were people who didn't understand me and thought I was doing what they claimed to be equalization. But I'll deal with this specific before I look at the global historical picture. And sometimes it's difficult when we are doing these things because we are the same people who say, look, allow the state institutions to work, in this instance, let the police conduct the investigations and complete it, build a docket, let us know what the details are, because there are still some gray areas, some questions that need to be asked. But I want to be very blunt. And look, what happened relative to the conduct of the member of parliament and a sitting minister of state, in my candid opinion, avoidable and inexcusable gaffe. Avoidable and inexcusable gaffe. Why do I say this? And I say this with all the recognition that I wasn't there. I wasn't an eyewitness. My observations and opinions and conclusions at this stage, and I'm being very fair, based on a variety of media reports, eyewitness accounts that I've heard, some police interventions here and there, and the lady herself's own views. Putting all together and doing a preliminary analysis of all the issues, I'm still convinced that what happened was avoidable and inexcusable. Why do I say this? Here we have a member of parliament, the sitting member of parliament for that constituency. Yes, a candidate potentially for, not potentially, she's obviously going to be a candidate for the coming elections relative to that constituency. She's also a minister of state. That place, it's well known as a hotspot or a flashpoint. That's why I said there's a history. Based on experiences and things that have happened there before, and also based on intelligence estimates by the security forces when they come to look at electoral areas and what makes them tick. So I assume safely that the member of parliament and the minister of state who is contesting that seat and so has some interest and ought to be policing the process according to law, as she said she was doing, would know that, look here, this is the situation. In any case, I hear that there was some information that had been sent to her earlier that indicated that some illegalities and, you know, possible chaos could happen. And so that's why I asked myself, why did the member of parliament and minister of state proceed to that hotspot or flashpoint without some preliminary security protection for herself? She's entitled to it. And especially in a place that is a hotspot, making prior arrangements and going there with your bodyguards and some extra protection if necessary makes sense. And nobody can contest that. But if you decide that because your bodyguards or the state security are not immediately available, so you proceed to that particular hotspot, and for that matter, arm yourself, and we are proceeding on the basis that her claim that she had her pistol, which might be licensed, I don't know, but I want to give her the benefit of doubt. I don't think a minister of state will go run without a licensed pistol or gun, so I want to grant that. But to assume that you could go there and in this kind of situation seek to protect yourself in the name of self-defense, I think it's a poor judgment. Completely. Because see, you are not alone. Whatever you do, however you do it, has an effect, a collateral effect on the party you belong to, the administration you belong to, the constituency that you represent, and indeed, the country as a whole. So I'm saying, and I've heard the analysis, the rationalizations, the justifications, self-defense. I've heard all those things. That are we not entitled to that? Don't we have to have a line? Look, it is what you do, where you do it, when you do it, and how you do it. The what, the how, the where, and the when. And who you are. So we're talking here of the who, the what, the when, the how, and the what. Then it raises all sorts of issues. So I can understand. There's something there called political solidarity. There is that animal there. All the parties too. They all do it. There's mistrust for the security services. But in this instance, I just cannot bring myself to rationalize, to justify, to reconcile. I just cannot do it. And we have to be very blunt and say these things as they are. Anyway, I believe this is just an introductory, preliminary observations that I'm making, because there are other details, there are other legs that we can deal with.
Let's hear Professor Jampo. Well, her party, the chairman of her party is a lawyer of a great deal of repute, I should think so, in this country, Freddie Blay. He has analyzed the circumstances from a legal perspective, and he says this is in self-defense. And if you remember, this is consistent with Freddie Blay at the start of this administration when, you know, hooligans of the party went to cause some commotion and were involved in some property destruction. He said they were exercising the Article 41 duty to protect public property. I'm talking about the invisible forces. Esla Owusu-Ekafo is also a lawyer of some great repute, if you like, in this country. She has also come to her defense to say that she did what is right. She did nothing wrong. Do you belong to the group that sees everything wrong about what she did? Like Kweku Baako says, this is unavoidable, but inexcusable gaffe. It's avoidable and inexcusable gaffe.
You know, I accepted to be here today just to speak my mind on what happened, you know. And I was thinking I was going to meet people on this panel who may offer defense. And in particular, I thought Kweku Baako was going to try to rationalize or to offer a defense to it. And so I was very much prepared. But listening to him saying that it is unavoidable and an inexcusable gaffe, I don't know whether I have something more useful to add to it. I think he said it all. He summarized whatever I wanted to say. You know, what happened can only be rationalized as a show of the height of political infantilism in a nascent democracy like ours. I don't see why anybody who has his political head properly screwed on would offer a defense. I mean, if it is wrong, it is wrong. I'm thinking that, you see, because power corrupts...
I don't see why anybody who has his political head properly screwed on
would offer a defense.
Freddie Blay has been MP, he has been a deputy speaker of parliament, he's chairing the governing party. Esla Owusu-Ekafo is a formidable person.
We're talking about the kind of politicking.
And also in politics.
I'm talking about the kind of politicking that occurs in advanced democracies that we all ascribe to.
Can you not criticize without coming across as insulting?
No, I'm not. I think I want to be blunt here. Okay, I just want to be blunt. I don't mean to insult anybody. I think we are growing a democracy, and so when it is wrong, we must be emphatic and say it. If it is right, we must commend it. Okay, so my point is, you see, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And in my view, I think going forward, we must think about schooling people about the exercise of power, particularly when they are in power. Otherwise, they would throw needless collateral dents to regimes and give cheap political ammunitions to their opponents so that they will use these ammunitions against them. And so I think that it didn't go well, and the regime and its heads or leadership must come out openly to say that, well, this didn't happen well. Just apologize and let us go on, so that the regime extricates itself from the blames and some of the negatives that may be associated with some of these things. And generally, in my view, I think what happened is a display, it's also a show of a fundamental lack of confidence in the security agencies. You see, since 1992, we have demonstrated lack of confidence in our security agencies. Why? Because we have politicized the security agencies. And so the opposition won't trust the security agencies. Those empower themselves. You also not, sometimes they don't also trust the security agencies. Otherwise, if you really trust in the independence and the credibility or the efficiency and effectiveness of the security agency, then the most important thing that she would have done when she was informed that there was something untoward going on would have been that, well, let me call the security agencies and alert them. And I'm sure, given her stature as an MP also, and also as a Minister of State, they would have listened to him to go there to ensure that there is peace and calm. But it is not within her right to go and restore calm or to go and resolve issues, at the polling, at the registration center, where you have electoral commission officials there, and then also you have security agencies there. And so for me, I think she goofed, and going forward, as a long-term solution, there's a long-term solution, but in the short term, I think the practice of members of parliament and political appointees or officials touring registration centers and also touring voting centers, I think we should discourage it, because when they are going there, they won't go alone. They would go with people. And so if we are contestants, you go there with your loyalists, party loyalists. I also do same. There would always be some level of clash, and there will always be some level of provocation that will bring about some form of violence. And so what are you going to do at the registration centers? Don't you have agents there? Don't we have security officials there? Let them work. But if you want to go there for whatever reason, then go there alone, probably in a company of your security, rather than going there with people who may go and provoke, and then it will lead to reaction and then some form of violence. And so generally, I think as a short-term solution, let us try to avoid situations where, it may be worse if we don't do some of these things. There's going to be an election, and you may have aspirants touring polling centers. Will they go there alone? They will go there with people, they are loyalists. And if you have another aspirant coming there with a loyalist or some loyalists, then there will be provocation and there may be needless clashes. And so let them not go there. Let them train people to police the processes for them, and then let them trust them to do a good. If you are not able to recruit the right caliber of person to go there to oversee the processes or to police the process, then you will have yourself to blame. And so let us think about some of these things. But on a longer term, I think that acts of thuggery, I don't want to call it vigilantism. To be vigilant is just to be watchful. But you see, acts of thuggery that surrounds our electoral processes and voting and registration processes would not stop, regardless of the laws that may be passed. It will not stop unless we do something proactive to depoliticize the security services of the land.
Okay.
I was part of those who did research to draft the Presidential Transition Act.
Right.
There were certain officers that we said those officers must go with the president, but there were some officers that we said for them they must remain. And I think the IGP's office was part, but it was not listened to.
Thank you very much for making the time to join us, Professor Kwesi. Professor Kwesi.
Yes, thank you. Good morning.
Great.